This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. Arriving to a mixed reception of cheers and jeers, President Reagan tonight is in Canada. The first visit there by an American president in almost a decade. It was to have been a purely symbolic visit, but it took on substance and controversy with Mr. Reagan's scrapping last week of a proposed East Coast fishing rights treaty. Bill Plant is with the president in Ottawa.
Spectators were few, but the welcome was warm as Mr. Reagan deplaned at the Canadian Forces Base near Ottawa. School children watched and listened as national anthems were played, guns boomed in salute, and the Governor General bade the President welcome to the house next door. But later on Parliament Hill, the reception was mixed. Still warm from the Canadian government, but hostile from the demonstrators on behalf of a number of causes who gathered on the Hill. The protesters seemed to equal in number the merely curious in the small crowd. Demonstrators complained about the fisheries treaty, which Mr. Reagan withdrew last week, and also of pollution problems, what's called acid rain caused by industrial emissions from American plants near the border. And they vociferously protested what they called U.S. involvement in El Salvador. But Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau's welcome, voiced over the hecklers, was nonetheless wholehearted.
Canadians are simply delighted that you've come to visit us. And Canadians, as you can see from these signs, and as you can hear from some of these lonely voices, Canadians expect much of Americans.
For his part, the president, who seemed undisturbed by the hecklers, did not mention them.
There is important work on the agenda before us. Improving our trade, protecting our environment, safeguarding our freedom.
Then Trudeau stepped forward again with some remarks that were not in the script.
Hey guys, when I go to the United States, I'm not met with these kind of signs. You know, the Americans have some beefs against us too, but we receive them politely. Now how about a great cheer for President Reagan? Hey.
As the two leaders posed for pictures in the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Reagan was asked what he thought of the demonstrators.
Well, I thought they were imported to make me feel at home.
But the President and the Prime Minister got along well, according to senior officials who attended the meetings. There was extensive discussion of the situation in El Salvador, and Mr. Reagan was asked afterward if the Prime Minister had disagreed with him.
No, we seem to understand each other very well.
The really difficult issues between the U.S. and Canada, however, were saved for this meeting, the last of the day. The President surprised Trudeau by agreeing to come to the proposed North-South Summit meeting in Mexico if he could find time in his schedule. He also agreed to Trudeau's idea of a three-way meeting between Reagan, Trudeau, and Mexican President Lopez Portillo. However, no immediate solutions were offered to the problems which face the U.S. and Canada: fisheries, energy, and pollution. Instead, the two sides contented themselves with emphasizing the positive and insisting that solutions could be found later at a lower level. Bill Plant, CBS News, Ottawa.
First there was sweeping, too slow. Then came vacuuming, too cumbersome. And now, the most convenient way of all, introducing electric brooming with the 3-speed Regina electric broom. Electric brooming is lighter. Electric brooming is faster and easier. For carpets, bare floors, all floors. So don't sweep, don't vacuum. Electric broom, the modern way to keep floors clean. There's a choice of Regina electric brooms, all under $50. Available at Finger Hut, Macy's, Bamberger's, and other fine stores.
If one Rolaids tablet isn't always enough for your acid indigestion, watch this Tums demonstration. One Rolaids and one Tums tablet are added to stomach acid. Both neutralize the acid. But on those occasions when your stomach has even this much more acid, Tums can still absorb it. Rolaids can't. Because tablet for tablet, Tums neutralizes 1/3 more acid than Rolaids. For acid indigestion and heartburn, all you may need is this: Tums.
As he flew off to Canada, President Reagan left behind for Congress his 1982 budget. It calls for spending $695 billion, and in spite of deep budget cuts, envisions a $45 billion deficit. Some of these spending cuts are attracting strong opposition. Bruce Morton and Jim McManus have our report.
The basic arithmetic is simple.
Last month, President Reagan outlined $34.8 billion in cuts and promised another $6.7 billion by today. But because it turned out government spending would be higher than they thought, the Reagan budget cutters have come up with $7.1 billion in additional cuts, for a total of $48.6 billion, not even counting proposed charges and other devices, which get the savings total to over $50 billion. But the budget also includes Mr. Reagan's tax cut proposal, and despite all those cuts, it shows a deficit for fiscal 1982, the year that starts this October, of $45 billion. Still, there were a lot of cuts.
More than 300 agencies or programs will be reduced, and I might say that the thundering herd of sacred cows has now been reduced to a handful as a result of the additional measures that we're sending up today.
Stockman outlined the new cuts this way. Nutrition programs, $700 million. Department of Agriculture commodity subsidy programs, $400 million. Overall, about 400,000 households will be dropped from food stamp rolls. $372 million in water projects. Remember the flap when Jimmy Carter tried to cancel some of those? $800 million in defense cuts, though defense spending overall is up even more than what the president asked for last month. $1.2 billion in cuts in the Health and Human Services Department. And the administration will propose a workfare program. No specifics today, so that those welfare recipients who can must do public service work. $1.4 billion cut from the labor budget, mostly manpower training programs, and $700 million from the Veterans Administration. Cancel or delay some VA hospital construction, end a Vietnam Vets Counseling Program, no change in basic veterans benefits. Along with cutting programs, Stockman said the administration wants to impose a number of user charges, ranging from boat and yacht fees to a charge for the government's grading of the tobacco that people like Bruce Fly grow.
I don't like it, but if everybody else does their part, I'm willing to do mine. I feel like that inflation is the largest enemy that the farmer has, and that we've got to do something to bring it under control.
The administration also wants to make big cuts, $21 billion worth, in government loan and loan guarantee programs. A big cut, for instance, in the FHA mortgage insurance program. The real question is the administration on the right track? The General Accounting Office is a congressional agency charged with seeing how well government and government programs work. Elmer Statz, who's just stepped down as the man in charge, is generally sympathetic to the cuts, but says one area, plain old, more efficient management, has been overlooked.
There are many opportunities for picking up really large sums of money, which do not result in program cuts at all. And here we're referring to more strenuous efforts to collect debts that are owed to the federal government, which we estimate could result in cash savings of maybe upwards of $6 billion in fiscal year 82.
Even if Congress approves all the cuts, Stotts adds a caution with which a lot of economists agree. Cutting spending may be good and necessary, he says. It will not, by itself, cure inflation. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
The House Education and Labor Committee offered strong evidence that many Republicans are prepared to fight some of President Reagan's social program cutbacks. Deputy Agriculture Secretary Richard Ling said the president wants to reduce child nutrition programs by 40%, a $2 billion cut with almost half that amount coming from the National School Lunch Program.
President Reagan, and you cannot contend that these cutbacks are not affecting the truly needy. Am I correct in that statement?
The cutbacks are not affecting the truly needy. We are maintaining the current levels for the truly needy children.
After that, Ling ran into a stone wall of resistance, some of the sharpest criticism coming from Republicans.
I wish you could get my administration to stop this business of saying that we're not going to truly affect the needy. That is totally erroneous, and I just wish they would use some other method to bring about this change.
Should the kids of this country, should the poor kids of this country bear the brunt of the inflation-fighting battle of this administration?
A panel of witnesses charged that massive cutbacks would all but destroy the school lunch program.
If the proposed cuts are enacted, approximately 35 to 40,000 schools will close their federal lunch programs, and at least 10 million children will drop out or will be forced out of the National School Lunch Program.
The committee told Secretary Ling to come back another day with less drastic proposals. Ling said he's willing to try, but insisted the Reagan economic plan demands cuts across the board, including child nutrition. Jim McManus, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The Executive Board of the United Auto Workers voted unanimously today to rejoin the AFL-CIO after 13 years apart. The decision still must be ratified at state and local levels. The Postal Service Board of Governors today announced that the cost of mailing a first-class letter will go up to 18 cents March 22nd. The cost of mailing a postcard will jump to 12 cents. With New York City Bank leading the way today, major banks across the country cut their prime lending rates 1/2 a percentage point down to 18%. That's the lowest it's been in more than 3 months, and some analysts are saying that within the next 3 months, the mortgage rate in housing should drop from around 15.5% to 13.5%. The stock market was down today.
I refinished this beautiful piece all by myself, and I can't even change a light bulb.
A pro wanted $300 to refinish this. I did it myself for $15.
Formby's furniture refinisher can make a believer out of you because it works unlike anything you've ever seen. It dissolves old varnish lacquer shellac without stripping, sanding, or scraping. With my furniture refinisher, it's a pleasure to create a treasure.
Homer Formby. No one knows wood as good. This month, many stores have special values on Formby products.
Discover an incredible beauty cream that can regenerate the softness in your skin. Night of Olay. It penetrates so quickly that Night of Olay never feels greasy. Because it goes deep inside, this remarkably rich beauty cream helps nourish your skin's natural softening process, easing dryness hour upon hour, regenerating softer, smoother skin. Night of Olay, the beauty cream that regenerates softness for younger-looking skin.
For most people, a flight of a few hours is a long time to spend within the confines of an airplane. But 103 persons now have been aboard a Pakistani airliner over a week. All of that time at the mercy of 3 heavily armed gunmen. From Damascus, Syria, Larry Pentak reports.
It was the hostages' ninth Damascus.
There were reports of widespread fighting in El Salvador today, with government troops said to be battling leftist guerrillas in 7 cities. There are no details on that fighting or of casualties. El Salvador's President Duarte, returning from a tour of the eastern provinces, claimed today that, quote, the extreme left has lost in this country. But as David Dow and a CBS News team found in the town of San Lorenzo, the guerrillas still are on the move.
The once embattled town of San Lorenzo seemed deserted until 3 armed youths appeared in doorways and motioned for a CBS News team to approach. We obeyed, trying to explain that we were journalists. Americans, we were asked? Yes, we replied. The questions that followed revealed both a knowledge and bitterness about the recent arrival of U.S. military advisors. We were asked if we were on a special mission from the U.S., whether any troops had followed us to the town. We assured them we had no connection with the U.S. government or military. But one of the rebels, appearing to be in his early teens, was still suspicious. We should take them to the chief, he urged. The patrol leader said he was 20, a one-time psychology student, that he'd been fighting the government for 7 years. The young guerrillas carried a variety of weapons, including American M14 rifles. Evidence that economic times may be hard for them appeared when they allowed us to leave. Our vehicle had been searched by 2 guerrillas guarding us from the rear. Some cash and a tape recorder were missing. David Dow, CBS News, San Lorenzo, El Salvador.
What this country needs today is a really good rental truck at a really good price. So Ryder presents the $19.95 a day truck. For local rentals, this 18-foot Ryder truck is now only $19.95 a day plus mileage. And Ryder has great rates on other size trucks too, from small vans up to giant tractors. What this country needs today is a really good rental truck at a really good price. Ryder.
when she's finally reached her goal, when she rates some private space, when he launches his new toy, when she's second in a race. This is the time for a little tickle. That's why FTD created the Tickler Bouquet. It's an inexpensive way to say, you deserve it. Bon voyage. You're first with me. Now, don't you know someone who deserves a little tickle?
Three weeks of labor peace today ended in Poland as 500,000 workers in and around Łódź staged a one-hour warning strike. Bert Quint is there.
A factory bell signaled the beginning of a strike and the end of a truce. In this textile plant and in hundreds of other plants and offices throughout the highly industrialized province of Łódź in central Poland, work stopped between 10 and 11 a.m. A gradual escalation of the labor action is planned, which would lead to an open-ended general strike in the region next week. Stores remained open and essential services were maintained, except for public transportation. The stoppage was in defiance of a call 3.5 weeks ago by the country's new premier for 3 months of social calm. The Solidarity Association of Unions had promised to try to heed that call because the country needed a breathing spell. The economy needed a new start, and the regime needed time to convince Poland's allies that their intervention was not required. The dispute began when 5 employees of the Interior Ministry Hospital at Łódź were fired for engaging in union activity. The ministry, in the face of the strike threat, agreed to reinstate the workers but refused to guarantee their right to conduct union business at the hospital. Despite Solidarity leader Lech Wałęsa's plea that it hold off on the strike, the Łódź union refused to give ground. Wałęsa met tonight with Premier Jaruzelski to try to resolve the problem in Łódź and to discuss a wide range of other subjects. Bert Quint, CBS News, Warsaw.
U.S. policy toward Taiwan has become one of the biggest foreign policy battles within the Reagan administration. Diane Sawyer explains.
CBS News has learned that President Reagan and Secretary of State Haig decided in a meeting last week to leave Taiwan relations as they are for now, rather than risk alienating Peking. It was the climax in a fierce secret battle between the White House staff and the State Department over an issue that has profound international repercussions and which was once a major issue in the Reagan presidential campaign.
I would not pretend, as Carter does, that the relationship we now have with Taiwan, enacted by our Congress, is not official. It is absurd and not required by the Act that our representatives are not permitted to meet with Taiwanese officials in their offices and ours. I will treat all Chinese officials with fairness and dignity.
But nearly 2 months in office have gone by, and no one from the Taiwan headquarters here has been invited into government offices, even though administration aides have gone out of their way to meet them outside. Nor have other gestures been made, such as permitting Taiwan to increase the number of its commercial and cultural offices in America, or permitting Taiwan to purchase a new defensive aircraft. If some of these seem like silly distinctions, remember Peking is hypersensitive to every move Ronald Reagan makes, and the Chinese ambassador has warned of serious consequences if there's any special treatment for Taiwan. The president's advisors lined up this way. Secretary Haig weighed in for Peking, arguing it would be crazy to tamper with Chinese relations until overall China policy is decided, especially since the Chinese government now has internal problems and since the current U.S. relationship with China helps keep the Soviets off balance. Arguing the case for Taiwan was National Security Council advisor Richard Allen. He reportedly said the president had an obligation to keep his conservative word.
The Reagan-Haig meeting broke a logjam on the subject of U.S.-China relations. President Reagan has sent a letter to Peking reaffirming President Carter's normalization of relations with China. And the White House is now talking about a meeting between the president and the Chinese ambassador in Washington. All in all, it's an object lesson in the Reagan presidency. On this first crucial choice between pragmatism and ideology, the president went with his head and not his heart. Diane Sawyer, CBS News at the State Department.
The Reagan administration indicated today that relations with Chile, strained for more than 4 years, will be improved and military and economic aid may be resumed. Acting Assistant Secretary of State John Bushnell told a House hearing that U.S. interests are best served by a less confrontational attitude toward Chile. The U.S. Ambassador to Lebanon, John Gunther Dean, escaped injury today when a bullet was fired at his motorcade in Beirut. Leftist and rightist Lebanese groups blamed each other for the shooting. Dean was the target of an assassination attempt last summer.
People across America,
Grandpa, I'm coming to see you.
New York to LA, they're leaving their cars at home and going the Greyhound way. No need to worry about driving when there's someone you can trust.
Next trip, leave your car at home and your troubles behind.
Go Greyhound and leave the driving to us.
So beautiful.
There's a special feeling that's uniquely a woman's. You do so much for everyone around you. Yet some days, you don't feel your best because of occasional irregularity. Then you take Correctol, the modern, gentle laxative. Correctol's special formula combines a mild laxative with a softening agent. Its gentle overnight action will help you feel like yourself again. Next time, try Correctol, the modern, gentle laxative so many women are using today.
The Special Task Force in Atlanta is looking into the files of police officers who quit or were fired over the past 10 years to determine if perhaps a former officer with a grudge against the department may be responsible for the murders of those 20 black children. Meanwhile, Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. star in a benefit tonight to raise money to aid in the search for the killer. And as Ed Bradley reports, fear is the legacy of the long community nightmare that's touching the conscience of a nation.
This is the face of the new Atlanta, the look that has made this city the symbol of the New South. But each weekday morning, in the shadow of these steel and glass structures, people from poor black neighborhoods of Atlanta get off buses at the downtown interchange, waiting a few minutes to transfer to other buses, taking them to jobs elsewhere in the city. This is as close as they get to the wealth and power of Atlanta and the good life that represents. There are two Atlantas.
Most of the children in Atlanta's ordeal were from poor neighborhoods. They too could catch a glimpse of this city's glitter, but were not a part of it. This was more their world, places where they could earn a few dollars doing odd jobs, running errands, carrying groceries, all of the time exposed to strangers and vulnerability, trusting their wits to survive. Two of the boys were last seen at the shopping center. What has happened to these children has cast a chill over this city, and it's changed the way people live and think.
Understandably, the impact has been greatest in these neighborhoods where children are used to spending a lot of unsupervised time on the streets. The murders have forced change and pressure on their young lives.
It's the fact of life, you know, you have to live with it. It's not whether you want to. Just know it's not our fault what's happening.
The change in the routine security of children's lives has not been limited to poor areas or to the parents of these children.
I'm a trained psychologist, and on another level, I react to differently as a parent. I know that I project my fears on my child. I try not to, but I know that I do. And I know that other parents are doing the same thing. I'm trained not to, and I still do it.
Many charge that for a year, City Hall and the police department did not connect the murders and failed to warn the community. A black city administration, they say, letting down a poor black community. Camille Bell is the mother of one of the earliest boys to disappear.
These weren't upper middle class kids, and these weren't affluent kids, and because they weren't, I basically contend that most of these earlier cases were treated as what I call misdemeanor murders, which basically boils down to that they were treated as cases that that didn't require a whole lot of work. After all, wasn't nobody getting killed worth mentioning.
We're doing 1,000 times more, and from the very beginning, have been doing 1,000 times more than anybody else knew, and then we were prepared to say.
The tension in the city, particularly in the black community, approached the flashpoint when 4 black children were killed in an explosion at a daycare center. An investigation would later show it was caused by a faulty boiler. But at the time, many felt it was just another chapter in a grisly story.
I think one of the things that happened to sort of cut some of that tension was when we started the community search efforts.
there were a number of people, black and white, who were asking themselves, what is it that I can do to get involved in this situation?
But the people of Atlanta still have to live with the threat that is there every day.
It's just like a dream. Something like this would happen.
Something like a nightmare.
You're afraid that they're out late. What are they doing out in the street? Or have anybody grabbed them or anything? It's just really scary.
When they're coming from school, they have to come by a heavily wooded area. They have to come by a graveyard. And I don't want them to be afraid of you or anybody else. I just want them to be aware of the persons or persons around them.
I'm scared as anybody else would be in their right mind would be, because we really don't know who we're dealing with. The person might be a police, who knows?
It scares me when somebody's probably riding around here trying to grab them, and that what scares me the most.
And the thing that really bothers me most is that the children are taking it serious, but the adults are not. When I was in school, and I lived 10 miles from my house to the school, I would walk to school and walk back. The neighbors were watching for the children. But we put the children out there, and the children are left to fend for themselves. And we have neighborhood schools, and you can't even get parents now to go to the bus stops.
Most people here are convinced that the murderer or murderers will be caught or just stopped. But all of this has left deep scars, and the thinking of children has been scarred the most. They've been taught by their parents not to trust adults, and psychologists say that will take time to change. But they also point out that among all of us, children are the most resilient, and that is their best hope. Ed Bradley, CBS News, Atlanta.
That's our report tonight. Until tomorrow, Dan Rather, CBS News. Good night.
If the truth be known, the shape of our new Buick Regal isn't new. Actually, it's something you probably tossed around as a kid. We made the nose low and the angle sharp to cut through the air efficiently. And we made the tail high to send the winds sailing. The elegant, aerodynamic 1981 Buick Regal. We think it'll fly. Now, Buick and its dealers offer a $700 bonus on a Regal or $500 on a Skylark.
It's a home, but it's like no other home. A place you're proud to be and to be from. 'Cause it's your home, and it's like no other home.
At Gallery of Homes, we'll find the one home you can't wait to move into. And find it before anyone else does.
Neat house, Dad! Who lives here?
Maybe us. Gallery of Homes knows there's no place like your home.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. This is CBS.
It appears some plea bargaining is underway as the clemency for cash trial begins. That story and more